Hey, welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Tuesday, August 12th. Temperatures outside in the upper 70s. Most of the smoke has cleared off into areas east of the valley right now, most of it. And it looks like that's where it's going to stay for the rest of the afternoon. Not a bad afternoon out there. A little breezy, but all in all, pretty decent for this time of the year. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And how's your day going so far, Bridgette?
Quite well. And so with all of the smoke and things that have been happening, you know what? It's nice to have a very calm day without so much wind, etc. And right now, I'm just glad to see things might dry out a smidge. We had a surprise 4/10 yesterday here around 4:30. There was just one little blip on the radar.
Yep.
It was right here.
And even here in Fargo, while the airport only recorded 0.03 of an inch, I had about a fourth of an inch at my house, and we had about a tenth of an inch here at the studio. So it depends where you were, north or south, varied quite a bit. But we had some severe weather briefly yesterday evening in Lakes Country. It wasn't much, but it was enough to prompt a few severe thunderstorm warnings. Now today, rest of today is going to be on the quiet side. In fact, we're looking at pretty decent weather out there for the most part. We're looking at partly cloudy skies. Temperatures currently in the upper 70s, a little bit of a breeze out of the northwest, and we'll stay about 78 for a high with partly cloudy skies and breezy conditions. We'll clear things out tonight. Good sleeping weather if you can open the windows, if you're not allergic to whatever's in the air, which seems like everything lately. 55 for a low tonight with light southeast winds. I'd say tomorrow probably the pick day of the week. Sunny to partly cloudy. Southeast winds only about 5 to 15. Book your tea time for tomorrow. Looking nice, 82. And then tomorrow evening, we'll see a warm front pushing in from the south. That's going to trigger off some storms, especially in the southern valley. We'll keep an eye on those. Some of those could turn strong. And again, timing on that would be after 6 o'clock. And then Thursday, behind that warm front, humid, breezy, and warmer with highs in the mid-80s. And then a better chance for strong to severe storms Thursday evening on a cold front. We'll be keeping a close eye on that with the main threat being large hail. And then temperatures remaining in the low 80s for the rest of the weekend with another round of storms possible Friday night. So all in all, not a bad-looking forecast. We really don't need much more rain, at least here in the FM area. And I'm sure kind of the same up where you're at, Bridgette. There's just we've had ample moisture. We're good to go. We could, kind of dry things out here. The good news on these storms coming up, they'll be hit and miss, but where they occur, there will be small pockets of heavy rain with those as well.
I would say we are definitely, let's think outside the Fargo-Moorhead area. Those of us out here, it's wet.
Yeah.
We're ready for things to dry out. In fact, having been past our wheat field yesterday, and then they probably got some of that rainfall over there yesterday afternoon. We need that to dry out in order for us to start getting in that field. People are talking about quality on their wheat right now. It's falling every time we get one of these showers. So we need things to get better real quick.
Yeah.
And stay that way for a while.
Yeah, I don't see a long stretch of dry weather, but, we're going to have these intermittent chances of hit and miss storms. I don't see any big storms, but again, even with these hit and miss storms, yeah,
they're dumping a quarter inch at a time.
Oh, I know. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. We have Terry on line one. Terry's got a question for us. Terry, go ahead. What's your question?
Hey, Dean. I was listening to you this morning, and you're talking briefly about the Pacific temperature of the water, how it affects our winters. And I believe it was the Pacific you were talking about.
Yeah, so you're talking about El Nino or La Nina, correct?
Yes, sir. And I got the gist of that. But what I'm wondering is what's the direct cause of the change in water temperature from year to year with being such a huge body of water?
Yeah, a lot of it has to. Good question, Terry. That's a very good question. A lot of it has to do with which ocean currents and is there going to be upwelling. There's a whole numerous facts, or numerous reasons behind it. But I guess the easiest explanation would be different ocean currents will. They will affect the ocean temperatures. And if the ocean temperatures are typically cooler than normal, which that's what we're expecting this winter, and again, this is just part of the atmospheric puzzle. Remember, we use the LRC for storms, and the ocean temperatures will affect air temperatures and storms as well. But it looks like as we head into this winter, we are expecting a cooler than normal winter. I hate to use the word colder than normal because we're not quite there yet, but it looks like a more active winter coming up here. I think it'll be a more typical winter around much of the northern plains.
So how many degrees are we talking about? I mean, is it like minuscule, or is it?
It's usually about and it doesn't sound like much, but it's usually anywhere between a half a degree and a degree and a half. That will make which, again, that's not that much, but it does make a big difference on how weather systems are steered around the globe.
Okay, well, hey, I thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Terry, for listening to Weather Ag and Focus. Appreciate it. That's a very good question.
Well,
Yeah.
our listeners are actually wanting to plan ahead. I mean, when you think about what the winter months might be like, it doesn't hurt to figure some of those things out right now.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the last 2 winters, they at least here, it's been a cakewalk for our area. Now it's been a little dry, but I think this year is going to be it's going to be different. This is going to be more of a typical winter coming up.
Well, and remember, typical winters, let's go back 40 years and figure out what the average is, because that is pretty variable. Now, one thing that is not as variable is the fact that we have great guests, and one of them will be joining us today. That'll be Max Steffes on the Action Block, is the segment we'll be talking about with Max. And he and I always start emailing back and forth. What do you think we should talk about? And then we have a list of about 45 things that it's going to get a little tough for us to cover in 10 minutes, but we're going to give it our all. And he's got some great auction highlights that I think are important for us to look at for either just recently past auctions or up and coming. And then after we visit with Max, we have an opportunity to visit with Julia Gurerra, and she is with Fly Guys. Now, with all the discussion about drones these days, and you can be on very different perspectives about using drones to be spraying fields, CRP, rangeland, etc. And there's some software that is available now through Fly Guys to help us with kind of keeping all that information in one place. So that'll be interesting to visit with Fly Guys, hear what they have to share, and so much more. But also, I was asked by a listener, when we talk about soybean nematodes, what are they? So I want to be sure to answer that question for a listener. And I need you to think about a nematode below ground in a root ball, like the corn stalk root ball. That whole plant would have something, the nematode would be something like a pencil point long, eel-like tube of liquid. And all it does is suck away the lifeblood of that plant, the plant juices, with a needle-like mouth part. Now, insects are always classified by their mouth parts. And so even within the corn nematodes, there's different species. They can be needle, sting, dagger, lance, stunt, and lesion. And the percentage of yield loss with corn really varies, depends on environmental conditions and so forth. Best way to monitor for those is with good soil sampling. We don't see as much for soybean nematode in this region, but with discussions ongoing about it, people are always curious. That was one thing I wanted to share. And a pencil-like eel-looking liquid item that's just wrecking our corn yields doesn't sound awesome. So we're going to try to keep those at bay.
No doubt.
Now, don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll be visiting with Max Steffes with Steffes Group on the Auction Block right after this. And here we are on the auction block with Max Steffes of Steffes Group. Hey, Max, I hope things are going great for you today.
Yeah, summer's going by too fast, though, Bridget. I mean, tell you what, we're already mid-August, and I don't know if it's kids or post-COVID world or what, but time sure does accelerate nowadays.
If you have young children, your days are long and your years are short. I will tell you that is a
That's
common
what it is
quote
then.
among parents. So you sent me some great upcoming, well, one great upcoming auction and then some other things that are going on. Can we talk about the auction with the 9 wind towers on it? Some details about that, if you would.
Yeah, so that's an exciting one of the 400 points that we want to cover today, so I'll get to it. So 942 acres north of Laverne is going to be selling on the 4th of September, and that's some high-quality tillable farmland. Mark Johnson is the seller, and Mark actually did his retirement auction sale with us 10 years ago. So Mark has been a landlord since then and has decided to go ahead and cash in on his land holdings. And what's unique about that auction is there's 6 tracks, and on the auction is some wind rights as well. So there's 9 wind towers on the property, producing about $64,000 of annual income. So the new buyer not only will get the opportunity to purchase and grow crop on the 6 tracts of farmland, but they'll also benefit from the wind income, which is a first for me and in the auction business. We've sold wind farms before in Minnesota and stuff, but never in North Dakota and never to this scale. So I'm looking forward to that auction on the 4th of September for Mark Johnson.
Are those easier to sell on the auction block with the wind farms on them, or it doesn't really matter?
Well, we'll find out, but I sure would think so because,
Right.
you know, and you think like a buyer. So if you're looking to go spend $500,000 or $1 million on a quarter of land, and you know that you can generate another $8,400 or $16,000 worth of income, you're going to be able to justify a higher payment.
Sure.
And that sort of thing. So it should drive up the cost. How much? We'll find out.
Okay.
So, okay, when you think about that and you're transferring the wind rights, similar to mineral rights on a regular, I shouldn't say regular, but on a different real estate transaction, do you handle all of that through Steffes Group? How does that process work when making sure all of this is a smooth transition from seller to new buyer?
Yeah, we certainly hold the seller's hand through that whole process, and that involves attorneys and closing agents and that sort of thing. And in this case, Next Era Energy is the wind holder. They're the leaseholder. So the new purchaser will basically assume and assign the existing lease arrangement that's in place with Mark and his current energy company. So the new buyer will basically step into Mark's shoes. And there's various legal paperwork that needs to be filled out and transacted at time of real estate closing. And that's something that we take care of on all of our real estate auctions.
There's a lot of questions that I would have to go along with this type of a transaction, but it's probably more for the wind tower company and the seller, making sure how is that relationship in the past and what do those contracts look like and how do they get renewed? And I also know that you're probably going to have some folks that are very for that opportunity, maybe as an investment opportunity to rent out the tillable land. And you'll have those who maybe aren't so pleased about that changing over and just want it to be back in tillable land. You're right. This is going to be an interesting sale to watch, Max.
It will be. It will be. Yeah, those lease agreements, man, they're 36 pages, 45 pages. You got to be an attorney to understand them. So I just sell the stuff, Bridget.
And Max, on those wind farms, so let's say there's breakage of the equipment. Is that responsibility of the electric company, or
Correct.
is that it is. So
Yep.
it's not on the purchaser.
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And in this particular case, the wind company has to maintain the grounds that the wind tower sits on and the associated driveway that's there as well. They have to maintain all that.
Gotcha.
So that sale opens on August 28th at 8 a.m.
That's the
closing
one.
on
It's
September
4th. Yep.
So,
Online auction.
all right. So, and don't forget to set those reminders on your calendars. I know that you don't have time to call everybody to remind them, Max, but someone's going to have to remind themselves to get in on this bidding.
Hopefully it's on quite a few
No.
calendars already. We'll see who shows up from a registration perspective. Thursday, we had that big ranch, Bridget. We could touch on that, but registration wasn't a problem on that one. 180 registered bidders on that.
Wow.
This was 4,200 acres southwest of Watford City. 180 bidders, 13 states. Tell us why this
Wild.
was such an exciting auction.
Yeah, so last
What was
Thursday
going
for
on
the
for this?
listeners, we sold 4,232 acres southwest of Watford City. Really special ranch, and this ranch really checked a lot of different boxes. It had three miles of river bottom. It had higher upland that you could put some hay up on, or even cultivate a little bit if you wanted to try to make some tillable out of it. It had a nice house on it. It was absolutely beautiful. Our representatives in Western North Dakota, Terry Moe and Martin Peterson, did most of the work on the project, but I did get to go out there and tour the ranch, and it was really one of those properties that you drive down the driveway, and after looking at it for 5 minutes, you just want to figure out what bank you can rob to make it work. It was just unbelievably beautiful. So 180 registered bidders, 10.1 million is what it ended up at. And the impressive fact or interesting part about it for me was that the fact that there was 180 registered bidders from 13 different states. So you talk about interest in the property and our ability to market and showcase someone's land and ranch. That just speaks to the interest that's out there for those type of properties if you hire a reputable company like us to get the word out there.
And that's exactly right. You guys do the background work. That's why I was asking about like mineral rights and so forth, because you sell these items, but there's so much more that goes along with it, that it's not just a drop the gavel and walk away, right? You've got to make sure all these other things are done before and after the auction for sellers and buyers.
For sure, and that, you know, most transactions that happen west of Bismarck from a land perspective, there's going to be a reservation with the minerals, and that was the case with this particular auction. This auction was precipitated by a divorce, so there was a divorce proceeding, and that's why it was sold. And as part of that divorce settlement, there was also 20 acres of net mineral acres that were sold on a separate auction the same day. And boy, oh boy, same in terms of interest. I think we had 100 plus registered bidders on that, and those minerals are pretty valuable. It's amazing the wealth that's out in Western North Dakota, Bridgette.
Oh, the story behind this ranch as well. You gave me just the highlight of it. And
oh, yeah.
Do you want to share that about
I do.
grandmother?
So what the coolest part about it is, you know, you're always wondering who bought the ranch. So the guy that bought the ranch was a local family. But what was really interesting at contract signing, I got to visit with his wife, Judy. And Judy's grandmother actually owned the ranch at one time.
No way.
And Judy's grandmother is a Cowboy Hall of Fame member. Letty Kellogg was her name.
Wow.
And talk about a total badass. I don't know if I can say that.
You just did.
Yes.
Trailblazing women. She grew a ranch into 10,000 acres during the Great Depression and had to sell portions of the ranch as part of the Garrison diversion. It flooded the river bottom that we sold, but came full circle back to Letty's granddaughter. So great story.
That's pretty cool.
End of the successful auction sale.
It's a great story, and she, like you said, she is in the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame. That's Letty Kellogg, and it's certainly worth looking at that family history, because sometimes the history, the provenance of what's being sold really matters in the auction, you might say, right?
Oh, yeah, whether it's a 40-20 that was grandpa's or a big ranch that was grandma's. I mean, those are very big motivating factors for some of these buyers that are out there, and it's important for you to know that history as a representative that's representing the family on selling something.
When you mentioned that, you know, there was a lot of interest in this particular ranch, outside of that, has there been a continued strong interest in land right now? Have you seen anything changing in land prices or interested bidders at this point?
I would say the land market's corrected regionally here, but what's interesting about the land market is the prices have come down a little bit, just a product of commodity prices and the sugar beet environment that we're in, but demand has not corrected at all. So generally speaking, when, you know, demand goes down, prices tend to go down a little bit. Demand has stayed solid. So I think that's going to buoy our land market this fall. I really do. I don't expect major corrections this fall from a land perspective, but there is still really, really good demand for tillable farm acres, for ranch properties, for recreational property. Really, land in general is in high demand, and that's throughout the nation. Talking to some of my colleagues in the auction business, land is in high demand.
I think that's a very fair statement. Even like you said, considering current commodity prices, it is a resource that you can't just find anywhere. And folks who want to do investments are certainly looking for that in land in this region. Max, thank you. I really appreciate it when you have a chance to come in. So
Yeah,
this
I
has
always
been
appreciate
great.
telling stories, guys.
Thanks,
Fun.
Max.
Anytime. And for those who are listening, don't forget you can reach us on the JLA Insurance phone line throughout today, 701-293-9000. Right after the news, we've got another guest. And as we are working to make sure our guest is connected, because sometimes things happen in the background and we are working through that as we speak, there's other ideas to talk about. And one is pollination is a big discussion going on right now, particularly for corn growers in the Midwest. We've been hearing about tight tassel wrap and other items, but there's some things we should know about corn pollination that we probably weren't even aware of. And so one of those things would be that there are actually 2 perfect bisexual flowers per corn plant. So here we are. We are about to have a whole corn biology lesson. So the tassel on a corn plant is actually a flower, and so is the ear, and that contains the silks, which you see the silks extending off the end of the ear. What many people might not realize is that in early development, the tassel has a female component, but that aborts. Likewise, the male component, or the stamens that exist at first within the ear, they abort. So then you're left with the male part, the tassel, and the female part, which is the ear. So when you say your corn's not listening to you, some would just say that's because that's the female part of the corn plant that's not doing what you want. There, I got that
You
joke
said
in.
it.
There you go. So also, sometimes we see debris on the leaves of the plant, and they're tiny white things on the corn leaves during pollination, but they're not actually pollen itself. The pollen usually shows up as a fine yellowish dust on the leaves. The white things, well, that's the spent anthers, and they've already released their pollen grains, so you can think of them as little spent bullet cartridges that was ejected after the gun was fired. So here we are, we're picking up all sorts of things that you didn't just get in a regular agronomy class, much less your biology class talking about plants. So also each tassel, so again, that's the flower of the top of the plant, each tassel can produce from 2 million to 25 million pollen grains. That's a pretty wide range, wouldn't you say? But that has various factors, including hybrid genetics, that can influence the exact number that's produced. And frankly, they're just darn hard to count. So for those of you who thought you could, that's not so easy. Also, the pollen. Usually we shed pollen on plants about mid-morning, but that's when the peak shed happens. When you're at about 86 degrees or above, that decreases. So that the temperature can truly affect your pollination. If it cools down, there can be a second daily flush of the pollen shed. If it's raining or if tassels are wet from the dew, pollen isn't released. So over 100 degrees temperature, that can kill the pollen on a plant. So when pollen is released in the morning and the temperatures are cooler, that's a best time for that to happen. So here we are, just covering a few of those standout items that come in when we're talking about corn, because today was our USDA reporting, and it sounds like our corn bushels are up. I'm sure the market will respond likewise. Well, Dean, I think we have our guest with us, and that is Julia Gurerra. She is with Fly Guys. Julia, thanks for joining us today. Much appreciated.
Absolute pleasure. Pleasure to meet you both.
Tell us about Fly Guys. I got a little information on you, and it piqued my curiosity, and now I want to hear more.
Well, fantastic. Well, Fly Guys is a reality capture data network, meaning we have 17,000 Part 107 pilots in our network. We also have a series of in-house pilots. I would say probably 90% of the data that we collect is through the lens of a drone. However, we do also do terrestrial and different types of aerial capture that maybe is not through the lens of a drone. My role here is as a solutions architect. My background is in data capture. Primarily, my education's in architecture. I spent most of my career collecting data for construction and environmental engineering purposes. So we are a reality data capture network that essentially provides the supply to the demand of the end customer who needs data collected anywhere in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and a few other places.
And Julie, what kind of data are you collecting, and what is it being used for specifically?
That's a very loaded question. Lots of different types of data. Lots of RGB, so photos, red, green, blue photos. Lots of infrared, LiDAR, multispectral. We do some magnetometry, methane detection, all sorts of data capture. And we're partnered with many AI partnered networks, meaning that we have AI partners who have software solutions that detect anomalies. For example, we might do a thermal flight over a large solar field. Then we would feed those images to a data analytics company that could then essentially put a price to the cost of the repairs needed for anomalies across a solar field. Or in agriculture, for example, we might fly red, green, blue, or multispectral imagery, taking those high density photos at a low altitude to either understand stand count or plant health, or maybe density or different types of plants, variations. So it's kind of a loaded question because it can do a multitude of things. I would say that the most impactful in my life has been volumetrics and LiDAR. So doing a LiDAR scan, essentially understanding the true ground below the grass or any type of foliage. The laser can penetrate through trees or grass and give you a true topography, which in construction, we used a lot for cut fill analysis to understand how much dirt needed to move on a site.
Okay, so when you're talking about the data and you're able to see so much, first of all, are you gathering this from independent drone operators who are operating across the US? How does that network work?
That's a great question. So 17,000 pilots is a lot of pilots. We do have a pilot
Yeah.
experience department internally. So that's built by pilots. Actually, some folks who flew for us internally for many years are now managing that program. So essentially, there's an onboarding program that happens when you sign up in our network. Anyone can sign up. We get about 150 to 200 folks a week. You get onboarded by our pilot experience, understanding what your experience is, what kind of equipment you have, what you might be interested in. And then that's kind of an open forum from the pilot to ask us questions too, like, hey, what kind of equipment should I buy? What's the highest density of projects in my area? Or, those types of development questions so that they can also develop their business outside of Fly Guys as well. And then as far as the client side is concerned, people are calling us from all walks of life, maybe about 35 different verticals, requesting data. And we have the opportunity to match make those pilots who are specialized in those fields with the clients that are requesting a specific type of data. So it's truly built in our portal, our product that helps us analyze, flag, tag the individuals on the pilot side, and so that we can do that matchmaking process with the data collection types for our clients.
Okay, I think you mostly answered my question about who buys the data because you're saying it could be anywhere. So you're thinking governmentally, university, private end users like maybe other farmers. Where does that am I headed in the right direction basically?
Absolutely. I would say municipalities and entities, we have large power distribution companies, we have small AEC construction companies, farmers, the software entity that is providing data to the farmers. Those are sometimes our end clients as well. So really I don't mean to be punny, but the sky's kind of the limit on what that data can be producing for those different individuals. There's a variety of use cases across the board. I would say the majority of our work is probably outside of the education realm. A lot of our work is with individuals who are working in, infrastructure, construction, facilities management, pipeline, renewables. Agriculture obviously is a really big one for us too. So, across all different walks of life and very similar data across the board too. It's more about what they're deriving from that data.
Okay. Okay. And when I think about drone pilots, everybody has to go through a specific amount of registration or licensing through FAA, et cetera. So you're working with pilots that are all skilled. This isn't just somebody who's flying a small drone just just for fun kind of thing. What I'm trying to get at is this is all professional data. It's not just a homemade type of thing.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head. There's definitely the Part
Okay.
107 license, which is required by the FAA. But I would say that there's also a place for those folks too. We all started somewhere, so there are some folks who maybe have a small, more recreational unit. Once they get their Part 107, they've crossed that threshold into being able to perform for commercial space. And as long as they have the insurance, we can help them through their initial onboarding and understanding where they're at so that we can match them with an appropriate level of mission. Some of these missions are requiring you to be in maybe a vest and boots, but you're going out to maybe take pictures of a roof of a house in a neighborhood, or maybe a few
Sure.
houses. Those missions are perfect entries for fresh new pilots, but the majority of our pilots are true reality data capture experts, folks with survey background. A lot of them are stitching their own data, with their own ways. Some of them are, developing some of the hardware equipment or doing things on their own. So we definitely have a broad expanse of levels of individuals, and we tried very hard to make sure that we're classifying those within our portal so that we can appropriately match them to their level.
How do people register, whether they're the drone pilot or that end user who wants to get data from you? How do they meet each other? What's that process look like?
So pilots can sign up on our website. We have a pilot portal that is just for them, their side. So they essentially fill out a kind of like a little resume saying, this is my equipment, this is where I live, this is how much I'm willing to work, this is my experience, so that we get a broad spectrum idea of where they're at. That is on our website. And then on the other side, also, we have the client entry form of saying, hey, this is the kind of data I want. And we'll ask some key questions there, like, what area is it in? What industry is this for? Have you used this type of data before? And then once you submit that on our website or call any of our sales executives, we'll call you immediately and formulate that task order individually for your location and your scope. The goal here is that we have a really easy scope that's ingestible for everyone, so that on both sides, we're getting what we want on a standardized side for the client, but also that we can perform very quickly and efficiently with our pilots. So we love to develop our enterprise partnerships with our clients. After we've had one or two missions under our belt, we like to strategize how we can standardize and scale together. There's lots of folks who are nationwide. Maybe they have multiple solar sites and they're all thousands of acres. That enterprise scale takes time to stand up, but Fly Guys can stand it up for you, essentially as your reality data capture network across the US.
So my last question for you, Julia, you've talked about all the ways that people can find you, but is there compensation for the drone pilots and the data?
Absolutely. I hang my hat on the fact that we compensate our pilots very well and very fairly. As a pilot myself for the last 10 years, a Part 107 pilot, it's a really impactful, important thing for me personally and for our company that we ensure that we're covering and keeping us at the market level so that those pilots are always being valued for the work they're doing. Like we said here, these are reality data capture experts, some of them with 8 to 10 years of reality data under their belt. And those guys deserve the appropriate compensation. And the reality that you're going to get on the back end is much cleaner. It's, data's only good coming out as it is going in. So that capture method is so, so important and vital for that end data to be accurate.
And Julia, got an email question here that just came in and asking how many of your pilots previously were actual airline pilots, whether it be just you have your actual Cessna or commercial. Just curious.
That's a great question. I wish I had that stat just pulled up for you, but I would say maybe of our 17,000 pilots in our network, we're probably using maybe, I want to say 20% of them consistently across the board. And of that 20% of our star players, maybe a quarter of them. I'll say that, if you fly a unit of any kind, an aircraft, you probably have a propensity to fly a drone. You probably are already flying one. Actually, several folks on our staff, our COO and our CRO are both pilots of their own accord as well. So I say lots of them. I wish I had a number for you, but probably more than I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, Julia, we want to thank you for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Best way is LinkedIn. For Fly Guys, we have really good presence out there. I'm also pretty present and very active, so LinkedIn would be the best way to go. But you can always also hit us up through our website. There's maybe automated methods in there, but they all go to real people. We're still a pretty small company on the back end, so we read absolutely everything that comes through. There's also a phone number on our website that will come potentially to me.
Awesome. Well, Julia, thank you so much once again, and have yourself a great rest of the week.
Awesome. Thank you. Likewise.
All right.
Take care, y'all.
All right. Thank you. Well, let's do a quick recap of the weather here. before we end the day. We're looking at partly cloudy skies, upper 70s today, clear mid-50s tonight. Wednesday evening and Thursday evening, a chance for storms, and some of those could be on the strong side. So for Bridgette, myself, we want to thank everybody for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus. Don't go anywhere. Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.